Welcome to Legacy and Leadership with David McKean. In my 20 plus years in the business world, I have noticed a common theme amongst all my clients. They're phenomenal leaders who are concerned about leaving a legacy in three main areas: community, family, and financially. Join me as we talk to proven leaders in their field about their specific ideas behind legacy and leadership. Welcome to Legacy and Leadership with David McKean. It is my honor today to be sitting here with former Congressman Bradley Byrne, who attended UMS Wright, which my three children currently attend.
Oh, good.
And also went on to go to college at Duke University and get a law degree from the University of Alabama. So former Congressman Byrne has held numerous political offices throughout his career. His most prominent time being a U.S. Representative for Alabama's 1st Congressional District from 2014 to 2021. Bradley currently serves as CEO and President of the Mobile, Alabama Chamber of Commerce, and he recently passed his 3rd anniversary for holding that role. So thank you and welcome, Bradley, to Legacy and Leadership. We're glad you're here.
David, I'm honored to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. You have lived a fascinating life of public service to our state and to our country. What was it that first led you to seek political office?
So almost 40 years ago now, I was a volunteer here at the Mobile Chamber, and they asked me to work on public education reform, which I didn't know anything about. But one thing led to another, and I got on a number of statewide entities who were working on that. The person that was holding the position of state school board member from this area retired, and people came to me and said, look, with all the work you've done and all that you've had to learn, this would be ideal for you to do this. And I said, well, they only meet one day a month, so that's not a big, well, it was a lot more than one day a month. But it was I spent 8 years doing that, and I was just so committed to the idea that we lift everybody up when we lift up the education for all the people in our communities and in the state. And I still feel that way. But those 8 years were really very magical for me because I got to see the actual tangible results of what I was doing.
Yeah, that's impressive, and always great from a political perspective when you can serve and see the results of your hard-earned labor there. So, when did you first recognize yourself as a leader?
I think that I knew that I was a leader before I became a leader. I just didn't have the self-confidence to step forward and do it. So I recognized, even while I was in law school, that I had the capacity for doing things, but I did not believe that I had the experience or the knowledge to do it and to do it right. And so I took my time to make sure that I felt like I was prepared to take on a leadership role. And my first leadership role was to be the chair of the education committee here at the Mobile Chamber back in the 1980s.
Okay, fascinating. So how you mentioned that you took your time to develop those leadership skills. Was there anything in particular that you really felt drove you or propelled your leadership skills during that time of self-study and more looking inward?
One of my favorite parables is the parable of the talents.
Yeah.
And of course, if you don't use your talent, God's going to take it away from you.
Yeah.
And I took that to heart and had some great mentors here in this community to help drive me to the understanding that, okay, God's given you this, all right, and you're required to do something with it, or He's going to take it back.
Yeah. So
I had to understand in myself, all right, this is a gift, and I need to use this gift. And then I needed to spend some time both talking to mentors, but also having my own prayer time with God to understand this is what He's calling me to do, and I need to follow that call, which I did. It took me, I don't want to overstate it, but it took me several years to get to the end point where I said, I'm ready.
Yeah, that's fascinating because that parable also has been instrumental in my life as well. And while I won't go into all the details, what I will say is about 4 years ago, someone challenged me with that parable. most of us in the Christian community use it to talk about investing our money or different things like
Yeah.
that. But this individual challenged me and said, "David, what are you doing with your actual God-given talent?"
Yes.
So it's fascinating that you brought that up as well. So,
Well, it's, all the parables are important, don't get me wrong, but that one, particularly at that point in time in my life, really spoke to me. And since I was going through a period of sort of self-understanding and formation, it kind of drove me to get to the point where I was ready to step up. And, and God will reach out and grab you. So
sure.
I got a phone call from Jack Edwards, who had been our congressman here for a long time. He had
Right.
left Congress, was the chairman of the board here at the chamber. I didn't even think he knew who I was. And he said, "Bradley, I need for you to get involved in the Mobile Chamber." And that's like God speaking through Jack to me, saying, "All right, this is it. Go do
Right.
this."
Right. Was it scary for you in taking that first proverbial step out of the boat towards that leadership journey?
I wouldn't say scary. I'm not sure I was as certain and confident
Sure.
as I came to be,
Sure.
but it wasn't scary. I was just sort of, and you've been through this, when God's taking you through something, you're just going. He's
Sure.
leading you, but you're following where He takes you to, and it is absolutely amazing where you end up. I mean, if you'd have told me 40 years ago that I would have ended up in Congress,
Right.
being the president of the chamber, I'd have said, "That's crazy."
Right.
But God works that way. He takes you to places you never imagined you go. And that's what's happened to me in my life.
Sure. Sure. Over those 40 years, I'm sure there were moments of self doubt along the way, and perhaps feelings of feeling that you're not worthy of the role or the office. How did you deal with those during your time in leadership?
Well, there were plenty of moments like that. You have to have, in those moments, you have to have the faith that you weren't put there if you weren't the right person for it. So I'll give you one little vignette. So when you're in the House of Representatives, they have certain times where they ask you to preside over the House. Okay.
Wow.
So you've seen that the person standing up at the podium, and everybody kind of milling around before the House. They're having votes or debates or whatever. So the first time I was going to do it, I was nervous and doubted my ability to handle it. You're on C-SPAN, at any given point in time, you got 2 million people watching you. I was nervous I was going to make a mistake, embarrass my constituents, embarrass me. And I was sitting at the very back of the House chambers, looking towards the podium, and right up above the podium, if you go look at it, these words are up there: "In God we trust."
Wow.
And so I said, "I'm fine." And I went up there and I presided dozens of times. And from that moment on, I realized, you're good. I mean, He's got you. Do what you've been prepared to do. Be conscious about what you're doing, and have the humility to know, you're not doing this all on your own.
Sure. Sure.
In God we trust.
Well, what's the old saying? God doesn't call the equipped; He equips the called.
That's right. In my case, that is absolutely the case. I mean, I'm the first person in my family to go to college.
Wow.
And so the idea that I could rise to that level and perform at that level, to think that I did that on my own is obviously
Sure.
not true. I mean, you'd have to be someone who's totally unaware to think that you can do that on your own. I've not done anything on my own.
Sure. Sure. Not only just go to college, but go to a prestigious college, Duke University.
Yeah.
So that's phenomenal.
Yeah, that was another time of self-doubt. My freshman year, I'm telling you, I was surrounded by some pretty smart people, and I thought, I have made a mistake. I have
Yeah.
gone somewhere
Yeah.
I'm not supposed to be, and I'm going to embarrass myself and my family. But I didn't. I had lots of mentors along the way,
Sure.
lots of people that God put in my way to be somebody who could talk to me and say, "No, you're fine. You just need to have the confidence in yourself that you can perform."
Sure. That's incredible and so important to have people that believe in you. So phenomenal. Who first person that comes to mind when you think about somebody who has impacted your leadership throughout the years? Is there one person that jumps to the forefront of your mind?
There are a whole bunch, but if I were going to pick one person, it would be Jack Edwards. Jack, from the very beginning, believed that I had something to add to this organization. When I first started running for a political office, for the offices that I ran for, he always encouraged me, not in a patronizing way, don't get me wrong. It was in an uplifting way. And he was always there for me. And he wasn't, hard hitting or anything. It was more like if I needed something, I knew I could go to Jack, and Jack would sit down and talk to me. But I had lots of mentors like that. And I had mentors in college and law school. When I first started practicing law, in politics, I never hesitated to take advantage. I don't mean this the wrong way. I had mentors, and I didn't hesitate to use what they could give to me.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's extremely important. How has your leadership style evolved over the years as you look back on your career?
Well, over time, you get the understanding that a good leader, it surrounds himself or herself with a good team. And so I think I've understood increasingly over the years how important it is to have really good people around you, because you can't do it on your own.
Right.
I mean, I didn't serve in Congress my own. I had a great staff, both in Washington and in the district. I don't run this chamber by myself. We have 30 some odd people who work here and do great work. And so my leadership style is more of get the right people in the right place, give them what they need to be successful in their respective roles, and then support them.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. Um, a leadership mentor of mine says you can either have control or you can have growth, but you can't have both.
Right.
Right. And I think that's a lot of what you were alluding to is having the right team around you and empowering them and giving them control over the details.
That's right. Because if I'm doing their job for them, why do I have them?
Sure.
I have to have the confidence in them that they know what they're doing, that they're properly motivated and going to work hard at it, and give me good advice. And I just got to tell you, over the last 30 years, that's worked very well for me. I mean, at one point during my career, I was the chancellor of the two-year college system in Alabama at a very difficult time because we had rampant corruption in the system. And, there were 13,000 people working for that system. You think I'm going to control 13,000 people? Not going to happen.
Sure.
So I had to have people on my team that I trusted to go do what needed to be done and to give me the advice that I needed to make the right decisions.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. Obviously, a storied career over 30 to 40, the last 30 to 40 years. When did you really begin to feel that your leadership became impactful to those around you?
I think it was when I was on the state school board first time. We were a reform board, and we were working against some pretty entrenched powers. And there were people that weren't on the board who were interested in education reform who would call me and say, you're going to have to organize a majority of the board to get these things done. And so we did organize a group of us that became the majority of the board. And I realized that my role wasn't to be the person to have the title. My role was to be the person behind the scenes to help everybody come to whatever conclusion we needed to come to reach the right policy decision on a given issue. So whether it was making sure we chose the right person to be the state superintendent of education, how we got computers into Alabama schools, which is its own story, how we dramatically increased the graduation requirements to get a diploma in Alabama. All that wasn't just me. But my job was to kind of sort of get everybody together and say, how are we going to solve this? How are we going to get to the right conclusion? And so I realized that a leader is not necessarily somebody that has the title.
Right. Absolutely.
Leader sometimes is the person without the title who's exercising that sort of behavior and leadership that brings people together and gets a group saying, this is where we want to go.
Sure.
I'm very proud of the work that board did. We were an excellent school board at a difficult time for the state, and I think we're seeing a lot of the fruit of what we did a lot of the work on back in the 90s.
Right. 30 years later.
30 years later. Yeah. Hard to see that 30 years before.
Sure. Sure.
But we did. We knew that we were going to move the ball, and it would take a long time. Much to the state's credit, the state understood that, and the state has stuck with it. And look at what's happening in Alabama now. I mean, the graduation rate in Alabama is phenomenal.
Sure.
That didn't happen overnight.
Right. Right. Many, many years of planting seeds and
and making sure we had the right people in place and that we moved the culture from one that accepted low academic attainment to another culture where we expect people to graduate from high school. There was a point in time in certain high schools in this state where we didn't expect people to graduate from high school.
Right. Yeah.
And they don't if you don't expect them to.
Right.
So we set that high level of expectations. Got some flack for it, by the way, because sometimes people don't want those high expectations.
Yeah.
I remember one lady came up to me and said, "You're trying to treat public schools like private schools." And I said, "No, ma'am, I want public schools to be as good as private schools."
Wow.
Public schools aren't private schools, but public schools can perform at that level.
Sure.
And I believe we have a lot of very, very fine public schools in Alabama, and I think they can and are performing at the level of some of the finer private schools.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Legacy and Leadership with David McKean, and you're able to take away proven tactics that you can implement in your day-to-day life regarding legacy and leadership. If you have questions or ideas for future shows, I'd love to hear from you. You can reach me at 251-648-6461, or you can email me at legacyandleadershipgoal@gmail.com. Thanks so much for joining us.